And welcome back to the Screen Addicts podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Chris. The makeup is just right, Viegas.
And I am Slimy Steven Sosa.
And guys, Steven has graciously let me take lead today because I am bringing in a guest. If you've listened to the show, I haven't brought in a lot of guests, me personally, but this one, man, it's been a long time coming. I've been a friend of this girl for quite a while, and it's time. It has been time. So let me introduce everybody to my friend, Elexi. Elexi, go ahead, introduce yourself, tell the people all about you and what you do, and pretty much why you're here tonight.
Oh man, okay. Well, like I said, my name is Elexi, and by day I am an executive director of a not-for-profit organization, but by night I actually scare at a haunted house, and I've been doing that for about 16, 17 years now. I started in high school. But more importantly, I fell in love with doing special effects makeup. So that's been a big part of my life for the last 16, 17 years as well. So I'm excited to be here tonight to talk about some of my favorite makeups in cinema and talk to you guys and see what your favorites are. And that's pretty much it right now.
Cool.
So.
And I know here recently as well, you were actually a lead makeup artist on a short film or an indie film, right?
I was, yeah. So I did the makeup and some of the wardrobe for a short film. It was called Red Bed by Comanchera Films, Nathan Franks. It was amazing. He's a great up-and-coming filmmaker, and the makeup was fairly simple for some of the parts, but for the short film, it was just amazing, and he was really great to work with. So I'm hoping to do more of those in the future. I have done music videos before also. So yeah, I mean, I do pretty stuff like, weddings and things like that on the side, but definitely when it comes to like blood, gore, and guts, that's my thing.
There you go. And that is why our topic tonight is our favorite makeup or special effects in horror movies. But before that, as always in true Screen Addicts fashion, as Steven likes to say, we're going to run down a little bit of what we've been watching lately. Elexi, if you want to go ahead, you'll go first. Just tell us a couple things you've been watching this last week.
Sure. So recently I finally was able to sit down and start The Fall of the House of Usher. And I'm only on episode 4 now, but it's been pretty great so far. And even the small amounts of like makeup like we're talking about tonight, and it has been just like, I mean, chef's kiss. It's amazing. I've watched a lot of anime, so I've been getting caught up on Jujutsu Kaisen. So I've been watching that too. I'm hoping to get to go see Extras Beginning soon, and that's on the list for horror movies this year. But yeah, that's kind of where I've been. I've been pretty busy with work, so hopefully going to be able to add to that pretty soon.
Heck yeah. Steven, you want to go ahead, my friend?
Yeah, I was going to say, Jujutsu Kaisen. I'm not as deep into the anime genre as Chris or my son is, but Jujutsu Kaisen is actually one that I did watch on Max, and it was really good. And
it's really good.
So as far as Fall in the House of Usher, I know that it's a remake, but is it one of Mike Flanagan's? Have you seen his other stuff, like The Haunting of Hill House and those other? So where would you rank it so far in terms of his other products on Netflix?
I'd say mystery-wise, I think you kind of have figured out a little bit about what's going on more than the other ones where it's just like, you're like, what is happening? What is going on with this? Like you already know what's going to happen, but it's just the telling of the pieces that have unfolded that I really enjoy that. And of course there's different time spans, kind of like in some of the other ones, like Haunting of Hill House, we see different eras in time. So I'd say I do like it more than I liked the very first one. But Haunting at Hill House is probably still my favorite.
Okay. I like
Haunting
Midnight.
Hill House.
Oh, okay. And Midnight Mass,
Mass.
I really took that
good.
one. I thought that was pretty good. Yeah, we need to start it. And of course, our mutual friend Chris Shea Hardzog, he was hyping that show up, and of course we had to chime in there. Neither of us had even seen the damn show, but he hooked us with Carla Gugino. Man, that's how he reeled us
that'll
into
hook
that.
us every time.
Yeah,
Every time.
But as far as what I've been watching, I actually, based on last week's episode, our Giallo episode, it was,
I was
shout
wondering
out.
if you went on a binge.
I did, and I took to heart exactly. I made notes even during the show because I didn't want to forget what it was. I mean, I know I probably could have just listened back to it and wrote it down, but for some reason I was real frantic about making sure that I didn't forget what I was watching. And I did watch The New York Ripper again. I hadn't seen that one in a long time. That one holds up. Don't Torture a Duckling I rewatched, and man, that one was pretty crazy. But All the Colors of Dark was the one that was hyped up quite a bit. Jermaine hyped that one up quite a bit, and it was good. She was right about the colors and the sound and stuff. But so that was the rewatch of the Giallo flicks. I got 3 of them done, and there's still a couple
about
more.
19 more.
Yeah, I still got quite a few more. But I also saw this one called Dark Harvest, and it's a brand new film that's released digitally. You can't stream it without purchase or rental. And David Slade, who was the director of 30 Days of Night, is the director of this movie. And I should have mentioned it last week, but I hadn't finished it yet. But I did finish it, and it was okay. Some of the story was a little, I can't really say like lower budgeted because the budget looked good, and the monster in it I already forgot his name, but it's like a pumpkin-headed / scarecrow cornfield monster that looked great. The kills were fantastic in that movie. So speaking of makeup effects, that one stood pretty well, and it wasn't working with a big budget, so they didn't rely so heavily on CGI as much as they did the practical effects, which I always love to see. And
100%
especially
better,
in a movie that is released in 2023, like that doesn't happen too often anymore. So when it does,
I
you kind of
definitely
really
feel like they're coming back to the practical effects. I think people are tired of CGI. They're finally starting to listen to us.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, it just looks better. It always does. Because it's real. It's real effects, and CGI. You can't master it to the sense of realism that you can with a bucket and fake blood. You just can't do it. But I think that's about it. Other than our shows, Chris, that we typically watch, I did miss you last week because there was something about Survivor that I wanted to chat about, but we'll save that for another day. And I also want to commend you, sir, for sticking with the all horror themed episodes for Halloween. I know that this genre isn't your particular favorite, but you're hanging in there like a champ, man, and I appreciate it.
Oh man,
there's a ghost behind you too, by the way.
There it is. It's an Abby ghost.
Oh, okay. It's just your dog. I was scared there for a second, but
it's okay.
As far as what I've watched, I mean, that was really it. I just catching up with some stuff. Yeah,
it's enough what you did. Like,
yeah. It's basically the rewatching season for us. Like me and my wife have our standard Halloween movies that we'll watch every year. We watch horror pretty much throughout the whole year, but there's some that we really save for Halloween. Haunt was one that she had seen it, but she must have fallen asleep or something because she didn't really care for it like some of our friends did, and so we rewatched that and. Yeah, she was like, I must have fallen asleep because this is really good, and I loved Haunt. I think that's such a great movie. Did a review on our Screen Addicts TikTok for it, and it's been out for a couple of years, but I highly recommend Haunt. I think it's a great Halloween movie. It's a great haunted house movie, like haunted house attraction, not haunted house like Conjuring haunted house or anything like that. But I recommend that one. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 2003 remake, celebrated its 30th anniversary last week. So we rewatched that, and I was like, man, this is still really good. The original's my all-time favorite horror film, but this one's still really good in terms of horror remakes. And even Connor he sat there and ended up watching the whole thing. But yeah, man, I think that's about it. I think I'm going to save some more for a later time, but that's all I had for this last week.
Man, so for me, what I've been watching, I was prepping for the Giallo episode, and so as for prep, I was listening to the Dead Body Bathtub podcast. Well, I had listened to their Saw X review episode, and Dude, that sent me on a rabbit hole. I 2 days, a day and a half, really. I sat and watched every single Saw movie.
Damn, the all
Yeah,
of them?
Binge.
all except for
okay.
X,
Brutal
'cause
binge.
I haven't gone to the movie theater yet to watch that. But yeah, I sat and watched every single, like, not just I saw the Saw franchise, so
Seesaw.
everything. Yeah, so Jigsaw, symbols, everything in underneath that franchise tag I watched. And dude, I have to say, man, like that franchise is pretty damn good for as long as it's been around. I know y'all talked about it a little bit last week, but it's just so good. And I love the traps and the innovation of the traps, and it's always like, what can they do crazy next movie?
Oh, yeah.
How are they gonna up this one or up that one? So I just got enthralled, and that's what I watched all week for the time that I had. But that was it for me.
Hold on a second. I mean, you just unloaded one of the most popular film franchises in the last 20 years. So, which one would you say was your favorite? Because I know they start to blend together when you start to think about it, but when you do a binge of them, they're still kind of fresh in your mind. So I would think that one of them stood out, or any of them stand out more than the other one.
So the one I think that stands out the most for me, and I say stands out, I think it's more or less of the best trap or the best game.
Fair enough.
The best game to me would have to be the one, and I don't remember which one it was exactly, but at first they're chained to the wall, and he asked for a drop of blood to get through to the next phase, and then they go into a barn, and so on and so on. And at the very end is the lasers that split the dude's head open like a flower.
Yeah.
I was like, holy
I think that's the third
shit.
one.
Yeah,
that
that sounds about right.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. But man, that whole game, and just from the beginning of that game where they have to go through that saw wall and then move on, it's just crazy. It's a pretty damn cool game. So yeah, as of right now, after my binge watch of Saw, I would have to say 3 is my favorite, only because of the game that was played into it. Story-wise, I'm very, very excited to see Saw X, just because of what you and the Dead Body talked about last week, saying it's like the Logan, and that's Mazzotti's words. I will let him take claim, but as far as it being the Logan of the franchise, dude, that just makes me super excited to go watch that one for sure.
It's definitely one of the best ones, which is surprising after how many have come out. But
again, okay, so in the back of my head, I'm listening to y'all talk about this and saying, it makes you sympathize with Jigsaw a little bit. And I'm like, damn it. How are you making me fall in love with the bad guy again?
I wouldn't say fall in love, but, well, I don't know, maybe. Some people do.
So,
but
I know
Definitely have
Jermaine
like that.
does.
yeah, for sure.
Pulling on those heartstrings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did
And
you
I'm
see
like-
that, Alexi? The new Saw? Have you seen that yet?
I haven't got to see it yet.
Okay,
no.
yeah, it's
I've been
definitely
tucked
good.
away. It's haunt season, so.
Oh, and you're doing
I'm
your
at a haunted house every
We're gonna have
weekend,
to.
you know?
We're gonna have to have you talk a little bit more about that.
November is it?
You're gonna catch up all in November.
Yep.
It sounds
Yep.
good.
All weekends.
After she catches up on sleep.
Right.
You're not wrong.
But I think we have just a couple of headlines before we head into the main topic tonight. So, Steven, you want to read off the headlines that we have?
Yeah, I had 2 off the bat that I wanted to share. One was Suzanne Summers passing away, which is Pretty sad. I mean, it's always sad when we lose somebody, but Suzanne Summers, she's been around for a long time. What's crazy about her is that my mom remembers her from Three's Company. I remember her from Step by Step. So it's just one of those things where actors and actresses, they age, and I didn't really see what or they didn't disclose exactly what had happened. But still, shout out to Suzanne Summers. And the only other major headline that I noticed last week, but I was saving it for this week, was the fact that Best Buy released a press announcement saying that they were going to no longer be selling hard copies of movies by the third quarter of 2024. So by fall next year, you're not going to be able to buy any more hard copies of movies. They're done. They're not going to be producing. They're not going to be making. I'm sure somebody will be making them and printing them, but Best Buy is no longer to be selling them, which is super bizarre considering we've spent our entire lives at purchasing movies from Best Buy.
Yeah.
I know that they have other electronics and stuff, but for me, I always would buy movies there, and that's just the tipping point. I think once that's been announced, then you could go to like Walmart and Target too, and you can see that the film section is diminishing by the year, and the videos that they have on sale, the hard Blu-rays or 4Ks, like they're just getting smaller and smaller, and the aisles are shortening
it's all going
up.
in, like the $5 bin.
Yeah, and that's it. And it's just so depressing to me because I'm a collector of Blu-rays and 4Ks and DVDs and hard copies. And it's so funny because whenever there's a network outage or something, what do we watch? I don't know, just go into the Steve's video store, the closet, and pick out any one of the thousands of movies I have in there. And I don't know what I'm going to do about it. It's kind of unsettling for me because
Amazon, my friend.
But if they put into a course of no longer distributing for sale, then these companies may not want to make them anymore because who's gonna
may not be worth the money,
right? And if they do print them, man, they're gonna be a hot commodity. And they're gonna be super expensive. So I don't know, but
hey, you tell me this though: is that gonna stop you from buying a movie that you really want? Though, say it's $20-$30.
Oh yeah, of course, of course, I have to. I can't stop that.
Feels like it has to be in my collection.
Exactly,
Price isn't important.
Exactly. So, well, I don't know. I'll have to see. I'll have to take it on a movie by movie basis. I'm like,
listen, I just found a Backstreet Boys video, like VHS tape.
Yeah,
and I feel like it's probably gonna worth some money. So
it could be. I might buy it.
Hold on to them.
Sounds good. But yeah, if either of you had any news that you wanted to share, headlines that you saw, I mean, that's all I had. So
I think that's it.
I was too devastated to further look into the news.
After that Blockbuster one, I'm sure you couldn't see through all the tears to read more headlines.
Yeah, it was rough.
All right, but so we're going to go ahead and swing right into our main topic tonight. And as we said before, our main topic tonight, because of our guest, is all about special effects and makeup in movies. And we each are going to take a top 3, as we always do, and mention our favorite horror makeups or special effects in horror movies. So this opened it up pretty wide. I know sometimes we can get pretty specific, but this one, there is a lot to pick from. So we will definitely have some honorable mentions. So don't be mad and don't come at us if we didn't mention your favorite special effects or your special makeup and be like, oh my God, why didn't you say this? It's okay. I promise. This is just our opinions, as always, and these are our favorites. So, in true Screen Addicts fashion, as always, Elexi, we're going to let you start it off with your number 3 pick, ma'am.
My number 3 pick. So, like you said, I mean, horror kind of has a fairly large, genre. It goes over so many different things. So, I'm going to start with my favorite horror sci-fi that has amazing practical and special effects makeup into it, and that's Alien. And pretty much the whole franchise. Every time you're going to see something that has, not only the animatronic side, but they coincide that with on people and makeup. And it's just, I mean, they make magic happen. They make insane things happen to people's bodies that you're like, what is happening? And it's just so like you said earlier, I mean, nothing compares to seeing like the buckets of blood and chicken cutlets and thighs and stuff like coming out of somebody's body that they've shredded to put in there, you know.
What, those
So,
weren't real body parts? They were chickens? What the
oh
hell?
man,
My life
I don't
is
know
a
what
lie.
you're told.
Ready for
life's
your
a
grill,
lie.
Chris.
Liquid latex, like I don't know how people survive before that in the movie industry, but that's, I mean, genuinely one of the very first movies that I watched. My mom got me into horror films at a younger age, probably the most parents would really care to do, but you know, that was our thing. And the Alien franchise was one of the first ones we watched together, and it was just, it mesmerized me just seeing like one, obviously the xenomorph popping out of the chest, right? I mean, just like someone sitting there screaming, and they're like, how did they even make it look like that's this person? You know, and later on you get to go back behind the scenes and see it, and it's really cool to see how they start making that happen. And then of course, you know, the, oh my gosh, you remember what it's called? Anyway, you know, the guy, his whole head gets ripped off, and all of a sudden you see him like coming apart. Well, they have that on the person, but then next thing you know, whenever they go back, that's when they bring in the animatronics and everything. But they're still using the same stuff they're using on the people on the animatronic to make it look so realistic. So that's definitely my number top three.
You know, the my favorite bit of trivia about the chest bursting scene was that the special effects team and Ridley Scott, who was just putting his cast through the ringer on that set, he did not want them to see the final result of the chest burster. He wanted genuine reactions. So whenever it's actually happening, that's the first time that the cast is seeing
They
it
see
happen.
it.
And they were just so blown away by the technical marvel of it that all those looks on their faces is just genuine reactions. And I've always loved that too, because it's like,
Oh, yeah.
once you see it done, then it kind of takes the magic away from it. And that's kind of like when we raised our kids too on horror movies and scary movies. Like, they were watching movies like Leatherface to go to sleep to, you know, that they just didn't, they're not fazed by any of it. So I would always explain to them, and the reason why they weren't scared is because I would explain the practical effects and how it took place and what they're doing. And, you know, I know it kind of takes away some of the magic, but it also makes them more curious as to how it's happening. And I think that scene is just one of the most iconic scenes in science fiction horror history. And there is other
Absolutely.
things like in the following Alien movies, but man, that's a great start.
It's
Chris,
like
I
an
hope
OG.
you're oh, for sure. Chris, I hope you've got a damn good list ready, man, because that's setting the bar pretty high. And that's your only third pick. Like, that's number three.
That's my
That's number
third.
three.
That's number
crazy.
three.
That's crazy.
Hey, I think I may surprise you again, Steven, like I did with my last picks when we had
The horror draft.
the horror draft.
Dude,
so
I'm
we'll see.
still impressed. And people have been, you know, shout out to the draft, because we've gotten a lot of really positive feedback about that.
Oh, you say it's positive because everybody's voting for you.
No,
jerk.
hey, what, you know what? I forgot to bring it up during the podcast last week that they, you know, the Dead Body Bathtub, Jermaine and Mazzanti both voted for you. So
Yes!
and I was like, man, I'm never going to hear the end of this. But it's that whole episode though was so much fun, and
It was.
but I was impressed. So I'm expecting, that's the level of expectation I have
Okay.
from you now, from here on out, Chris. You know, I know we're in year
Thanks,
7.
Lexi.
I know we're in year 7,
I'm sorry.
but it's about time you got on board.
After everything that I've done personally and seen in the industry is like, yeah, my bar
Well,
is.
you know, to take a pause on the rankings real quick. I'm curious to know more about it and what it is that you do exactly. So, is there a particular type of effect that you love to use? Like, if you are set on a movie set or any kind of production, is there something that you just would really like to slip in there to use because it's a personal preference of yours?
I would have to say, I think the thing I feel I'm the best at would be like rotting flesh.
Oh,
Because
nice.
I love liquid latex. I love working with it, and silicone. And so, of course, now they make like smooth on silicone where you can put it directly onto people's bodies and sit there and mold it and create it and make it look, you know, like you're burned or you have like maggots coming out of it or something, you know. In that short film I did, one of the longest like pieces of makeup that I had to do with someone's leg, and it took me like 2 hours to get this leg done to make it look like it's been sitting out in the sun rotting for like days. And it was so much fun to do that with somebody who's like who can't see what's happening, and all of a sudden the scene's done. They finally get to look at their leg and they're like, "Oh my gosh, like I can't believe that's on me. Like it's disgusting." I'm like, "It's supposed to be disgusting. I want blood. I want grossness. I want it dripping. I want it to look like kind of wet, like just decay." And so I'd have to say that's probably my favorite thing to do. So like zombies, love doing zombie makeup. I've learned in the hot industry how to do it extremely quickly. We have 20, 30 actors to get done for the night in about 2 hours, and a lot of people will do their own, but will help out too. So but awesome. Yeah, definitely that's probably my favorite thing.
You doing okay over there, Chris?
Dude, my stomach's a little queasy, but with the power on, man.
Excellent.
With the power on. I can't wait till Christmas.
I know.
I'm gonna have some horror movies for Christmas
too.
That's what I was saying.
Let's go. We've got plenty, man. We've got plenty of that too.
Okay, Steven, do you want me to go or you?
I can go. It's no big deal.
Okay, you go ahead.
My number 3 is a master in horror makeup, and that would be Rick Baker, right? So Rick Baker has done so many movies, and he's even transcended genres. Like, he did comedies with Eddie Murphy. He's the one that created all of the characters in Coming to America, The Nutty Professor. Like, this is all his latex work is from Rick Baker. Well, Rick Baker specifically, I think his crowning achievement is An American Werewolf in London. Now, this is an 80s film. A lot of people know it just because of its cult status. It's an amazing movie. It's so funny and dark, and the makeup effects in this movie are just, bar none, one of the best werewolf transformations you will see on screen. And that's back in the 80s, man. It still holds up to this day. He did The Howling, which came out a couple of years later, which is also about werewolves. And while the effects in that are good too, but American Werewolf in London, it had so many great things about it. And even before the transformation, there's he's having hallucinations of things. He's seeing his dead friend, and it's kind of like what you were saying, like about how corpse rotting, decaying. Like, that's just one of the best examples of that in American Werewolf in London. There's like a weird fever dream with these like Nazi zombies killing a family in a living room. Like, it's just insane, and just everything, how it looks. And again, Rick Baker, he's one of the all-time greats. And I want to shout out his Instagram. Like, he is so good on Instagram, the stuff that he posts, because he has his FX shop, and he just posts stuff that he's working on, and he just does it for fun. Like, the guy's renowned for his work, so he gets to be in this kind of almost retirement phase where he's not working as much as he used to, just because he wants to settle down. So I highly recommend you going to Rick Baker's Instagram and following it there, because he will just, you want to see a demon? Okay. And he'll put one together, and it's awesome stuff. But American Werewolf in London specifically is my number 3.
Nice, man.
I think that's a great pick.
Oh, absolutely. In research for this topic, there is not one forum or Reddit or anything that I saw that does not have that movie in it. Like, it is held in such high regard for its makeup, and it's
you talk about setting the bar high. I mean, that's probably one of the best ones too.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
So, one thing I loved about that too, because I do the same thing. Like, I watch something and I want to see, like, oh my gosh, how do they do that? Like, maybe it's something that I can do too. Maybe in the hot industry, I love to build stuff. I mean, that was part of it. You build rooms, you build animatronics, things that are just going to, like, freak people out. Like, how did they do that? They did the practical effects with latex and silicone rubber, like, that made the claws expand. They pulled hair through latex or through silicone and then put it in reverse to make it look like the hair's growing out.
Right.
I mean, they're talking about, man, we did all this work for months for like 10 seconds of a scene, but then you saw it all put together and you're like, okay, it was worth it. Like, that. It's all that time and work, it was worth it. Like, I was talking about the leg. It's there for like a few seconds to show the dead body. But man, like it puts the scene together and it immerses everybody. So yeah, that's a great pick.
Thank you.
All right, cool. So here I go. All right, so
The Muppets.
the Muppets. The Ernest Halloween movie.
Hey man,
That's mine.
don't
I know.
shit
I'm not.
on Ernest Scared Stupid.
I'm not.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because the Kyoto brothers who did Killer Clowns from Outer Space were the ones that sent their makeup team over to create Trantor the Troll. So the reason why he looks so badass is because he's basically like a refashioned Killer Clown from Outer Space. And I mean, I'm not even gonna lie, that movie still scared the shit out of me.
I know your
so
love
weird.
for that movie.
Why did you even bring it up? Is that what you're
Sorry.
trying to do? You're trying
It's like
to.
a major theme of like the Spirit Halloweens this year. I don't know if you've seen all those, but like they have all of the clowns there and like all the guns. Oh yeah, it's like a big thing this year, which kind of surprised me.
Mm-hmm. It's a
Dumb
classic.
clowns. Anyway, okay, so my actual number 3 pick, man, we cannot have a special effects show and a list without GDT in this list, man. And so I know I'm pulling back from the well of Pan's Labyrinth, but I am going with number 3, the movie Pan's Labyrinth with all those monsters of Guillermo del Toro's freaking mind. That dude is a sick individual, and I love it. And if to me, it's one of those. He's one of those guys that you, no matter what you think, if you were to start a movie and be like, okay, I need to make some crazy ass creature, who are we gonna get? He's one of the first that is gonna pop into your head, no matter what. Top 3 list of just monster creations. So that is why Pan's Labyrinth. I know I said it before a couple weeks ago.
You fell back into the well.
I
You're
did.
there.
But man, they're just so creepy and so just done amazingly that it's hard not to have him. And if I could pull a Steven, I could just say any creature that GDT creates could be on my number 3 or any number on this list.
Well, it's like, look at Hellboy. I think Hellboy is, I mean, Ron Perlman and Hellboy, and even Doug Jones as Abe Sapien, like they look incredible. Yes. It's just, and even the makeup effects in that alone, it's so good. So, I mean, he definitely has a keen eye on it. And even his older movies like Kronios and stuff like that, like there was so much detail in props and how the villains and monsters were going to look. And that's a safe pick. That's a good pick.
Yeah.
GDT.
That's a great.
You cheater.
Honestly, one of the scenes in Pan's Labyrinth that I think got me the most too, like visually, was the nose scene
with the beer bottle.
And yes,
that's exactly what I told you, Chris.
That freaked me out.
Yes,
that was like I wasn't ready, and like next thing you know, it's gone. And so like I know they use a little bit of CGI, I think just a little bit in there for that scene, but afterwards, I mean, the hole in the face that was special effects, and that was just like one of the only scenes I think that has ever actually like grossed me out. Like it was that one.
It was so shocking too. That was so crazy you brought that up, Chris. That's exactly what I said. Because I was like, the scariest part of that movie is when the guy gets his face caved in with a beer bottle. It was just so just haunting, and how it looked, and that's
it was so fast. Like I think that was it too. It's just like you said, like it was just.
Like, sometimes the realistic violence like that, it's so unsettling, and I think that's to great effect because I mean they're talking about Nazis and shit like that, so it's like, but it's pretty good.
All right, so I'll circle back. I'll start off number 2, and I I've had a lot of horror this month, so I'm going to Christmas, but I'm going with a scary Christmas, and I'm going with Krampus.
Okay.
Oh man, talk about scaring the shit out of people during a time where it's supposed to be joy.
It's the best part.
I was like, that is joyful to some.
That is joyful to some.
I thoroughly enjoyed myself.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Dude, he's just so freaking scary and creepy, and like
his
every
toys.
nightmare ever freaking had, this guy could be in it.
Yeah.
And just his face, the horns are what get me.
Those are dope.
I was brought up to where like the devil has these big horns. Well, I think of the devil, I think of him now because of them horns. You know, it's just so creepy, but they are just that whole makeup, the wardrobe, from like the wardrobe to the makeup to the prosthetics to everything on that character is just top notch great.
And the dark elves, you got to shout out to those little fellas. Like, they look cool. And that's a good pick. That's a more recent one too.
That's a good pick.
I'm impressed by that, Chris. Not bad.
See,
I'm digging the evil Christmas vibe. I'm here for it.
I know.
Yeah.
It's always a fan favorite with Steven.
I love it, man.
I love
Krampus.
Yeah. All right, Steven, what is your number 2, my friend?
My number 2 is actually from 2015, and this is from Mad Max Fury Road. This movie is one of the best movies in the last decade. It is, I don't hype it up enough as I should. It's a technical marvel from start to finish. So much practical in this movie, from the stunt work all the way down to the makeup. And the makeup artist was Leslie Vandergraff, and of course she's Australian, just like the rest of George Miller's crew, and she was nominated for an Oscar for this movie because the way that they look in this movie is so just grimy, gross, dirty.
Oh yeah.
Or Morden Joe is such a great visual villain. The Doof Warrior was wildly celebrated in our household. We have Doof Warrior shirts. And it's just how they look. And then the War Party, the War Boys, Nicholas Hoult, just the spraying of chrome, the chrome, you know, just the symbology to the characters for their, you know, their passion to follow that Psycho and Morden Joe, you know, just all in chrome. It's just everything in that movie looks so authentic and real. And it's just a set. And that's the best part of it. It's almost like a stage play come to life with, you know, moving machines that can run you down and you know,
just like pummel over you.
Furiosa, you know, her makeup, her hair and makeup. Charlize Theron, she's always great, but she's just that. I still think Furiosa is one of her best roles. She's won Oscars before, and I still think that that's one of her best roles. And just I think that Mad Max Fury Road should just get some kind of acknowledgement more so than it does. But yeah, Leslie Vandergraff for Mad Max Fury Road is my number 2 pick.
Man, I am super surprised because I know, you know, I don't know if we've talked about it a lot on the show, but I know me and you've talked about the Mad Max movie before, and man, you like you said, you don't hype it up as much on the show as you do like me and you talking, but you love that movie, and rightfully so. It's like you said, man, it's visually just perfect to a T almost.
You know, as a matter of fact, early in our show, I think in year 2 or 3 when we did the movies with the best stunt work, I think I ranked it number 1 over everything else, just because of everything that they did in that movie with the stunt work. And like I said, top to bottom, it's a damn near perfect movie. And the fact that, I mean, I think it was nominated Best Picture. I know George Miller got nominated for Best Director for it, and that doesn't happen to action movies. So that just tells you how good of a movie that was. But yeah, I love it. I'm gonna go watch it when we're done.
You got a lot of giallo.
I gotta finish my giallos first. Yeah.
All right, Lexi, what do you got for number 2?
So number 2 is going to have to be. It is a newer movie, but I was extremely impressed with the visuals on it. Would be Terrifier 2.
Holy shit. Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy. Art has made his appearance.
And for great reasons. So the little child girl, that's me on the inside, and I'm not even going to be afraid to, like, say so. Like, it's fine. It's me. But, I mean, let's just start off with, like, it's obviously stomach turning for most people. For me, it was visually, yes, I'm looking at you.
Chris is raising his hands, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, I
But
forgot this is audio
like-
It's an
podcast.
audio medium.
Yeah. Just start making the gagging noises, they'll understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
But especially when I start talking about it. So here we go. Going back to practical and special effects in this movie made it what it is into the cult classic I think it is today. It's just brutal. And you see the knives going into flesh. You see the blood, like the copious amount of blood and guts coming out of people. I mean, it's insane. They're using techniques from other movies to bulk people's heads up. And I mean, it's just going back to the basics of like making it look spectacularly real. You can't tell where really the real person starts and the makeup begins. Like, there's just no way. It's extremely well done. It's kitschy. It's, I mean, obviously grotesque. And just makeup wise, what they were able to do in this movie with the budget they have, which was $250,000, and they're booking $10 million right now. Like, it's amazing. And it's definitely what I think other filmmakers look to hopefully get out of their films. And I hope people see that practical effects is like the way to go. You have to make it look real by creating the makeup on everybody to make those effects look real. People want to see, if you're going to do blood and gore like that, they don't want to see like fake CGI stuff, spewing everywhere, or like, it just makes it what it is. And so that's why Terrifier is my number 2.
It definitely
if you haven't
caters.
seen it, you definitely have to see the first one to get the second one.
Yeah. I was going to say, I love the Terrifier movies, even All Hallows Eve, which are the clowns in one scene, I believe. But he can't talk about Terrifier 2 without talking about the bedroom scene. The bedroom kill is just like...
Oh, it's brutal. There you go. Yeah, there's Chris.
Chris passed out. We'll wait for him to come to. But in the meantime, I will be... that whole kill scene, I mean, it goes on for a while, and you're like, damn, what does he have left to do to this poor girl? Okay. And it's just the makeup. And we saw a Fathom Events of it, right? So at the end of a Fathom Events production or a presentation, they put on a behind-the-scenes look of every movie. So there was about a 20-25 minute behind-the-scenes look at Terrifier 2 and how they did all that stuff. And, of course, the bedroom scene was one that they showed some of the effects that they did. And, the girl's, like, her head's, like, through a hole in the bed and where her body's still there. That whole bit. Because, I mean, he's just mauling her. And
brutal.
That whole franchise is just picked up big time. And like you said, though, that type of level of gore effects really caters to a specific audience, and the audience that really enjoys that type of property are coming in droves for the Terrifier movies because they're so good. Even the first one with the split, that split sequence was just holy shit. Like, man, that was brutal. And but like you said, all practical. It looks better, and a lot of people were squeamish about that, but yeah, that's a good pick. I do like some Art the Clown.
I want to ask both of y'all, and we'll start with Lexi. If you haven't mentioned it already, in Lexi, you've seen both, correct?
Yes.
Okay, in both movies, what is your favorite kill? If you can narrow it down to one.
Oh, that's hard. Ooh, that's hard. Obviously.
Oh yeah, Splitsville.
I was about to say the split scene. The split scene's iconic.
Yeah.
The only other time I've seen something similar to that was in, I think it was called
Bone Tomahawk.
Bone Tomahawk.
Yeah. Oh
Which
yeah.
really, you didn't see all of it. Mm-hmm. In Terrifier, you see
everything,
all of it. So that's where I would probably put that above that. But the sheer brutality of the scene, of the bedroom scene in the second one, it's definitely, while it may not be 100% not done before, because we've seen, people kill people in bedrooms and there's just bloody murder. but the sheer brutality of it, I think, is what would put it up there.
Yeah.
But the split scene is just it's iconic to the franchise, I feel like, and so I'd put that. That's my favorite.
Which one was your favorite, Chris?
I'm pretty sure I turned my head at each and every one.
You're like, my hands.
Yep, my hands.
This was his split.
That's
This was his
how
split.
I watched the movie. Yep.
Pulling your fingers across from your eyes for a minute.
I honestly, like, Steven recommends this movie. So I was like, okay, I'll sit down and watch it. And the first 5 minutes, I'm like, nope. Pause.
Yep.
Pause. Gotta take a moment here to collect myself before I move on. And honestly, Steven, I don't think I've ever finished the first one.
That doesn't surprise me at all, Chris. I'm not shocked.
He's like, I already know.
Oh, man. So, I'll get to it, man, I promise. And then number 2, you said, is like almost 2 hours long.
It's 2.5 hours long.
It's
oh
2
my
hours.
God.
It's a long
Worth
ass
it.
movie.
It's going to take me 3 years.
Yeah, an hour a year.
Yeah.
You better hurry because the third one's supposed to be coming out next year.
That is true.
Right?
Yeah, because they're
Oh,
fast tracking
shit.
it, and they're getting on the run with it.
10 million gross profit out of
Yeah.
a $250,000 budget. You're gonna want to do more.
And
Like,
their budget for 3 isn't that. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
they're still in the same range within $500K to $1 million. So I mean,
Yep.
Which is
They're doing good.
Which is good because it's going to force them to keep practical effects and not go CGI, especially fast tracking it, right?
yeah, and it's it's the Saw franchise, in that sense, because those movies weren't expensive either, but they made a lot of money in terms of what their budget was. So when you get a massive return like that, it's just easy.
If it's working, like, do it.
I'm glad you like Bone Tomahawk, though. I
It's a
love
good
that
movie.
movie, and there's a lot of visual or makeup effects in that that are just so gruesome. But you would like that one more though, Chris, because it's a western.
Yeah.
Kurt Russell.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
a
there we
time.
go.
So it's a nice family film. You should watch that.
Kurt Russell, it's
Yes.
Tombstone?
Tombstone.
Part 2?
It's Tombstone 2. Yes,
Tombstone
exactly.
Part-
Go watch Tombstone Part 2.
All right, so what we'll do, Lexi, we'll end with you on number 1s.
Okay.
I think mine, I'll start with mine since pretty much we've talked about it already. But my number 1 special effects makeup is the Saw franchise. We've talked about this at length already, so I won't bore you with it again. But man, just to reiterate, some of those games and some of the minds that have to come up with all these traps and these games, it's just insane. And it just goes to show you, man. And they work, yeah. And they work. And it's almost like they put you in, immerse you into these stories and these games so much that you almost feel these things as they happen. I would hate to go see a 40X of some of this shit because I don't know, it'd freak me out. But
I think it's too much.
it is too much. I mean, if I get a rush of cold air when Wahlberg gets his head smashed by the ice, that's going to freak me the hell out,
Why does it smell like watermelon in here?
Oh, shit. But that is my number 1, is the Saw franchise. And it's probably because I just binged it. But, man, they're so good. So good.
They're good.
But the Saw, I think as far as all the traps go, I think the one that's still it's cringe-inducing is when Part 2, when Amanda gets tossed in the needle pit and she's just...
That's mine.
That's I don't know, man. I've seen some dismemberments, decapitations, explosions, but something about those needles, that's just brutal stuff. And she wasn't even supposed to be in there. It's poor girl. Spoilers for Amanda, but yeah, that's a rough one.
Well, I am looking forward to seeing, obviously, when they put out the teaser trailer for Saw, the new one that's out, the eye vacuum.
Oh, yeah.
It's obviously going to happen, and I'm just really excited to see how they
That's what they're going to do to my eye, Chris, to fix it finally. But yeah, that sequence is really good. I will say, though, I don't give spoilers, but this apparently takes place between 1 and 2. So going into it knowing that, I think that helps quite a bit because it really sets the stage properly because, Jigsaw died in part 3. So everything after that's pretty much prequel if you see Tobin Bell show back up. So, and obviously Amanda's dead too. So how is she back in this one? Well, it's because it takes place between 1 and 2. So
nice.
Good pick, Chris.
Chris makes sense. Yep. Good pick.
I didn't do too bad, right?
I think you did great picks.
So my number one. No.
Wow. Okay.
No. Hey, cool. You know what? The fact that this isn't your terrain horror, you're still giving it your best. And it's good. You had some good stuff. I mean, who doesn't love Saw?
And at least you've seen it. I mean, at least you're not sitting here talking about stuff you haven't, actually watched and enjoyed watching.
Like Terrifier. Can we have a watch party? Can we have a watch party? I want to watch you watch it. I've got to see that.
We have to
fun.
do that.
Oh
we
my god!
We see a full reel of his reactions the whole time.
Yes. Have your camera facing you. Yeah. I don't care about the
I'll
movie. I want your
TikTok
face.
The movie.
Chris Cam.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, Steven. What do you got for number 1, man?
Number 1, man. This is my all-time favorite. It's definitely one of my all-time favorite science fiction horror movies, just in general. But this would be John Carpenter's The Thing with special effects by Rob Bottin. This movie holds up to this day. It is a masterpiece in storytelling, and it's a remake. Like, people don't realize that this thing is a remake. I know that they made a prequel remake a couple of years ago, like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It was okay. It takes place before the events of John Carpenter's Thing, but even his Thing was a remake. But man, it holds up. I love Kurt Russell. I've always been a fan of Kurt Russell, and the cast in this ensemble is so good. They, it's something like Alien too. When you're in a movie like that where you've never really seen anything like this before, and you just kind of wonder yourself, like, how serious should I take this? It's like I always go back to when Alec Guinness, who played Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, said that this movie looks so stupid. What are we doing here? Like, he didn't have the foresight to see what it inevitably became. And so when you're making a movie like The Thing with the effects that they're doing and working around all these things, and you just kind of wonder, man, I hope this turns out okay. And then what you get with The Thing is some of the best creature effects, and I don't want to spoil too many things, but it just, with the animals, and of course no animals were harmed on the production of that movie, but like dogs turning into monsters, and it's such a fantastic exercise in FX makeup. And okay, there's the defibrillator scene when he pushes down, and then oh my god, that scared the absolute shit out of me when I was a kid. The first time I saw that, I was just, it's an excellent movie and a master class in this type of genre.
Absolutely.
Have you seen The Thing, Chris? When was the last time you saw that? You need to watch that, dude.
I probably need to watch it.
I would say
I need to rewatch it.
I would say it's Chris scary. So in that case, it's got some good jump scares, but I think you can handle that one. It's no Art the Clown. He's not killing anybody in that one.
Yeah, there's not. I mean, I would say there's gore. I mean, not really gore, but like just the transformations are really what is like kind of like ick.
Yeah,
but
I think you're right.
End up expecting it. Yeah,
right. And it's more gross out.
I see you.
Yeah, it's more gross out stuff than kind of gore carnage type of a thing. Yeah. But I mean, there is a little bit of that too, but it's just, I love that movie. It is so good.
I'm on that one.
Sweet. I was dabbling between that and Alien, like that'd probably be my number 4. But yeah, definitely.
All right,
cool. All right, so before we hit on Alexi's number 1, is there any honorable mentions anybody you would like to say?
I mean, to go back on Rick Baker again, how do you not love Jim Carrey as the Grinch? That's it's the Christmas family.
It is Christmas.
There you go, Chris.
Yeah.
And his heart grew 10 times.
And it was just, he sat in that chair for like 10 hours too, as that happened. But stuff like that, I always really marveled in with when actors take that level of commitment to sit in that chair and to just have the work done to them like that. And prosthetics are no joke, especially back then. You know, I think I'm sure, Alexi, you can confirm this, that they've gotten better and easier to manipulate on actors. But
definitely, the good stuff still takes time. Shout out to like Jennifer Lawrence sitting to be Mystique for the hours of putting on the body applications, and of course, I'm sorry, I can't remember her name, but you know who was the original Mystique and
Rebecca Romijn,
Rebecca Romijn, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a great pull.
Stamos.
Yeah.
Better not leave Stamos off.
Sorry, forgot her marital name.
But the hours that they put in, they have simplified it a lot with the work of like silicone prosthetics. They go in first, create the face, create multiples for the entire production. So I'd say like I guess like streamlining everything and having it set up the correct way has helped with the time and creating, you know, making it practical to still use for a movie that you're trying to get done in a timely manner. I'd also like to give shout outs to like other makeups that aren't quite so, I would say like gory or like silicone and prosthetic based, but like even like Beetlejuice, like all of the makeup done in all of the Tim Burton films. I mean, it's just so extravagant and extra. It's eye catching. For example, like the pageant queen in Beetlejuice. I mean, you had two people that had to have makeup done, one on their entire bottom half of their legs and another on the top, you know, the one with the road rash on their face. I mean, those things take time too, and they may not be in there, but they just create, you know, makeup create just such an amazing like world for people to immerse themselves in. Without makeup and making those people look how they're supposed to in these films, you wouldn't have a good film. And I think people kind of forget about that. Like the way they look, they were made to look that way. They didn't just come on set and throw dirt on themselves. I mean, dirty people in movies, makeup artists do that for them.
So good.
I could just walk on set and save a lot of people time.
Yeah.
Good.
This dirty bastard. The makeup is flawless. Well, you know, another
it's
one.
So real.
Another one that I really like was Stan Winston Terminator. You know, just the effects that they did on like Schwarzenegger and you know, making him look half cyborg, half human. All that stuff was so great. And you know, you see a lot of that back in the day, like 80s, 90s, even in the 2000s. It's just because before CGI came in and they had to do everything CGI based, like it was all done like that. So yeah.
Cool. And then there's one TV show, and I have to throw in a TV show because TV Vegas has to come out. But there's a show that was on the Sci-Fi Network that I was just so intrigued with, and I think I've mentioned it on here before, Steven, is the TV show Face Off.
Yeah.
Where it was a competition about doing makeup and creating creatures. And man, just to see the time, I know they had a limited amount of time to do this, but some of the things that these people would create in such a small amount of time was just amazing. And it's, I think that show is a big part of a reason why my oldest got into, like, he's into horror like you guys are into horror. Like, he'll sit and watch you be like, Dad, why are you turning your head?
Stop crying.
Throw up.
Don't ask me questions.
Yeah. And so, you know, he watched that with me as a little kid, and he has just, from then on, it's like, how do they do that? And he watches it in movies, and now he's a really good artist. And so even tonight, he was like, hey, what's a good horror monster that I can draw tonight, just because he wants to draw. And of course, I picked Pale Man. So, so he's drawing Pale Man tonight. But just that TV show about these artists, you know, just like Alexi said, you know, there's not a lot of praise given to these people, which it needs to be, because they do a lot of hard work for sure. So that's my honorable mention for TV.
I almost got to be on that.
Oh,
wow.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah. I had one of their producer people like contact me one year, but I had already committed to doing or to managing the Amarillo Scare Grounds that year. So I went ahead and declined. Plus, you have to go to LA and be away for a long time. And I don't like big cities, so that's probably been one of the downfalls of being a makeup artist is you usually have to go to larger cities and stuff.
Yeah, that is true.
I'm good.
Lexi, next time this happens, I will go with you. We have to get you on the show, man.
I don't want to be in LA, man.
Don't
It's
turn
not
it
for me.
down for Amarillo Scare Grounds. Jeez. All right.
People.
Yes, they are. I mean, it's crazy because before I had met you, I didn't realize that the people in haunts and haunted houses, I mean, they're a tight-knit family. Like, these are some of your best friends in life that you've kind of met through these haunts,
Yep.
correct?
Definitely.
And also, and before you say your number one, I want to talk about this too. I think it was a couple of years ago that you went to like a big convention, a horror convention, just about haunt stuff.
Yep.
And you got to
Yep,
see
there's
all
several.
the new cool things coming out
Tech,
for
yeah.
haunted houses. And man, I just, if you want to talk a little bit about of the cool shit that you've seen, because I saw you posted some on your socials, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. I'll never go
Sure.
do it, but yeah, it was really cool to see.
Yeah, so haunted houses definitely are like a family. I'm really grateful to be at the Haunted Sundown this year. Tony owns it. Great people. But before that, I was at the Scare Grounds, and I was lucky enough to get to go to several different haunted house conventions. So the one I think you're talking about that had the most things, like the trade show floor, is called Trans World, and it does have like, I mean, you couldn't believe how many vendors are exist and how many things exist specifically for the haunted house industry. Especially coming from like people who started with home haunts, like the owners of the scare grounds. They started with a home haunt years ago. Now they have this huge, scare palace, four different attractions inside one area kind of thing. And the same with these people. So you would get to see full body silicone suits, all the different like makeup for as far as like all kinds of different types of blood, guts, things you could use for practical effects, mechanism, animatronics, things that look so lifelike you just can't even get over. It's just a huge trade show going over like all the things that you can use for props, not only in the haunted house industry either. Lots of producers, lots of movie companies come that do like horror type films, and they'll get these props, and like later on in some movies you'll see them in there and you're like, oh, I saw that at Transworld, or like I know where that's from, or I know who made that. Specifically, they have when I went, they had a huge ship, like half a ship in this corner, and a full size like giant shark comes out of it.
Oh, that's
Like just
awesome.
for a display, that's what they have. So you can imagine what they could implement in the movie industry and their haunts. I mean, it's amazing what's capable out there, and it was so neat to see, and I did love sharing that on socials. I love people getting to see that side of it, just how great that industry is, and all the different things that go into it. So yeah, it was fantastic, and I love being a part of it still.
Good
Cool.
stuff.
Heck yeah. All right, Lexi, send us
All
off.
right.
What is the number one?
I'm gonna take you back to the 80s, really when horror, I'd say that decade, you had tons of great stuff come out. This one included probably the most insane practical special effects that they'd seen yet, which is going to be Hellraiser, the original, obviously, from the 80s. Flesh getting torn apart, people getting ripped into pieces, shredded. I mean, things like that you don't see. The Cenobites themselves, like, people had never seen things like that done before. You're talking full body prosthetics, moving full body prosthetics, moving mechanisms within the prosthetics. It was just a whole new, I guess, like magical thing to probably people seeing this in the horror genre. And it's just, it was it's what I think set off a lot of other things in the horror industry when it comes to practical makeup. So that's why I chose it as my number one. There's just, yeah, bar none, it's probably the best that's been out there, that was put out there in the beginning, I feel like, at least in my generation.
You know, I went through a Clive Barker phase when I was in high school and in my first year of college, right? And I was reading as many of his books as I could. The Damnation Game's still probably one of my all-time favorite books. And, you know, his description of gore is it's so descriptive, basically. And, you know, there's a lot of flesh tearing. And when you watch Hellraiser, because he also directed Hellraiser, and it's adapted from one of his books. I guess it's Hellbound, essentially. But the movie showcases his book in the best possible way in terms of gore effects. And it is just, with the chains and everything, it is just so brutal. And Pinhead, from a visual standpoint, is, again, one of the most iconic horror villains out there, just because of how he looks. And he doesn't even have to do or say much. Like Doug Bradley, I don't know how long he had to sit in that chair to do all that stuff, but oh my God, he looks so scary in every single one of the movies that he's in. And that's a really good pick. I thought that I had stepped on your pick. I was like, oh my God, did I accidentally say it? But I'm glad I didn't. So I wasn't expecting that. But now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, I mean, because it's not just Pinhead. What people realize is, like you said with the Cenobites, like it's more, there's a lot more creature effects than what Pinhead presents. And that's a really good pick. That was a good one.
Thanks.
Man, I have to say, like, Hellraiser, it's one of the ones when I was little that, you know, I would watch Freddy Krueger, Jason, you know, Michael Myers. I watched all those. Those were fine. That's one I had to stay away from because just the sheer look of that man scared the living crap out of me. And so it was like, okay, I'm good. You keep your needle face away from me because I will have nightmares for years.
You know, something else in Hellraiser, now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, I think Christy Cotton, her dad, where he's skinless, like he's walking around skinless, and damn, that is some... and the brutal. Detail in like the veins and like the muscles in his face, it's, man, that is a really good pick. Now that I'm like thinking about more of the movies.
They had to sit for a long time to get it to look the way that it did on all the people that had it on. And I think, like Chris was saying, just the story in itself that goes along with what they had to represent, what they had to put out from the books and from, you know, the storyline, like it was just so like not just brutal, but it's just surreal almost. Like just a surreal imagery that you had to put out into this movie to make it what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I like is you don't imagine these things existing and all of a sudden they're right there in front of you and you could easily touch it and think that it's real. And so I think that's what I like is it immersed you into it. So
80s horror, man, you can't beat
80s horror.
And you know, it's funny because, you know, you mentioned Freddy Krueger, you know, that's great makeup effects, but I think also Tom Savini, his work, and in like the Friday the 13th series, I think that is some of the best gore effects as well, especially in part 4, the final chapter. Like that's my favorite Jason movie. And you know, he came back to do that because he got to kill Jason. Little did he know that he was going to be coming back 20 more times. But it's such a great 80s horror is just easily just the top level of this stuff. So
cool. I feel like they found their peak almost with it. So
oh yeah.
You know, I think the years following 90s, 2000s, even into now, it's almost, they've tried to replicate it. They've tried to go and be that way, and it can't be touched. It's very hard. I know, I guess, to y'all, it's getting close with Terrifier, but, you know, it's, maybe it's going back. Maybe here in the next decade, we'll see a resurgence of good horror practical effects, which would be really cool for you guys. For you guys.
That's...
We'll tell you how it was, Chris.
I appreciate that. But I think that's it, man. Perfect picks. Lexi, this is why I asked you to be on this horror month, man. And
Yes,
I know if we ever had a horror month, she's one of my friends that had to be on here, and we've talked about it a long time getting her on here. So I'm glad it finally happened, and
Me too.
you did not let us down for sure.
Well, I'm glad.
Where were you keeping her, Chris? Like, this is great. Like, what took so long? Come on.
I was keeping her away from
kids
you.
And
Yes.
Well, I guess that's true.
Life.
Oh,
things,
I forget the personal commitments we all have to deal with.
Man. Dang it. I could totally talk about horror movies all day, so.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
here for it.
I kept her away from you, Steven, because I didn't want her to become more of your friend than mine.
Yeah.
I was being kind of selfish in that way, but
smart.
Now the door has opened, so
the gates have opened.
Great. All right, Lexi, go ahead and let everybody know where they can follow you on socials, see some of your work.
Sure.
I know you've had a couple of social media pages that are kind of dedicated to your work and stuff like that. So go ahead and let the people know where they can follow you.
Definitely. So on Instagram, it's evasquez018. So that's EVASQUEZ018. I put a lot of my makeup on there. I do have to do some updating. I'm not the best at social media. But I also have a lot of my cosplay stuff on there as well, which I like to do on the side. TikTok, I am on there. My persona is at twisted_Trixie. So it's twisted_TRIXI. I do have a lot of my makeup and stuff on there as well.
Nice.
And then, of course, just on Facebook, you can find me as Elexi Norton, Norton. So I'm on there as well. That's mainly where I post right now. But I do try to flood everything else. So, yeah.
Well, you're about to get a surge of new followers.
I'm here
so
for
you
it.
Better,
I'm about to throw down all of this year's haunted house makeup and do some TikToks with some of my fellow haunters. So I'm excited about that too.
Awesome.
Cool. Steven, you got anything else before we sign off?
No, sir. I'm just a little upset that Halloween Horror Month is coming close to an end. Still working on some more things. I think after this episode airs, we only have 1 week left, Chris, and you're off the hook, man. You're off the hook.
Survived
the fisherman's hook.
I volunteered tribute to take this places for horror movie conversations.
Absolutely. I mean, Chris, thank you for doing this. When I don't know if he told you this, but back in September, Chris had this idea. He's like, you know what? Let's do all horror themed.
I'm so proud of you.
And I was like, for October, I was like, are you sure? Really? I'm like, all right, let's do it. And our friend Jeremy, who was on the show before, this guy we used to rate certain gory movies based on the
Jeremy Gore score.
The Jeremy Gore score, because he just...
Nice.
He's a huge fan of Clive Barker. So the fact that you picked Hellraiser as your number one, he's all over that.
Oh, so we're besties now.
Yeah, Jeremy would also be your bestie. So I think between me and Jeremy, we can completely phase Chris out. So it's not a big deal.
No.
And,
cool.
But yeah, so cool. I really do.
I don't exist in October.
We need to bring the Jeremy Gore score back on some of these movies, because it was like drops of blood. He said it's like 5 drops of blood is the goriest level of movies.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so you never know. We might be getting the guy back on here for a couple of episodes. So I don't know. He's trying to work his stuff out with his schedules, depending on his job. But the other than that, we're just we're here. We're doing one more week, and I'm excited.
All right, guys. Again, thank you for joining us on another episode of the Screen Addicts podcast. Wherever you're listening to us, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, we're all over the place. So just make sure you hit that subscribe button, and so you know each and every time we drop a new episode. And since you're there already, go ahead and leave us a review. 5 stars would be great. That just helps us get seen out in the podcast world a little bit more. And then go ahead, head over to the socials, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or the new-ish X. Just search the Screen Addicts podcast, and just look for our cover art. We'll be out there. And then go back to Facebook. Facebook, we have a private group that we'd love for you to be a part of. It's called the Screen Addicts Fanatics. We'd love for you to be one of our fanatics. That page is where we're most active. We're dropping trailers and movie news and memes and all the funny stuff and all the scary stuff as well. So don't just think it's there for the nice people. It's all for your horror enthusiasts as well. So guys, make sure you request to be part of that group. And again, thank you so much, Elexi, for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you.
I was so glad that you asked me. I was excited.
Yes.
I loved it.
It was awesome. So as for me, good night.
Adios, amigos.
Bye.